Okay, so there's a couple of things that we want to do in today's session. One is I think that it's good for us to learn from other people who've dealt with really difficult things. In this particular case, we're going to pick Ernest Shackleton, and then a gentleman who actually replicated that journey with the same equipment, which seems kind of crazy to me, but I'll read about it with you in just a minute. And then we'll just hear from you a little bit of what can we take from that? What can we take from other people who've done really, really difficult, almost impossible things and apply it to what we're doing? One of the things we learn in the Leaders Survey every year is that everybody wants to get more best practices from each other. So then we're going to work on some of our levers for creating political will, find out what's working for you, and then share it with everybody so we can steal it. And then the last thing that I want to do is see what you are doing or what you can do to make your chapter more inclusive. We are a way younger organization now than we used to be. We've added a lot of conservatives. We're doing a ton of outreach to have more conservatives. If you were in Washington, D.C. in June, you'll see that we're a far more diverse organization. So what are we doing to make sure that we include and welcome those people and make sure that this is a welcoming environment? So hopefully we'll have time to get to all those things. So let me start with the Shackleton piece. And this is an article that I found, and it takes about 10 minutes to read, so my apologies for the length of it, but I think it's worth it. All right, help, technical person. All I see is Office of Information Technology. Cool.
Just use the little arrows.
Okay, excellent. How about, do you want to be my friend and come up and advance the arrows while I read from here?
I will advance the arrows.
Awesome. That way I can just focus on this. Okay, Ernest Shackleton's story teaches us leadership and also how to fight climate change. Sometimes we have to look to the past to find inspiration for how to impact the future. One of the best places to look for leadership is in the explorers who have persisted through the most dire of situations, and there are few pioneers with more pluck than Sir Ernest Shackleton. Shackleton's story of keeping 27 frostbitten men alive for more than 15 months in Antarctica is now taught in many of the world's leading management schools. Yale, Harvard, Cambridge, Wharton, you name it, NASA even has a Shackleton training program. Most people use Shackleton's stories to teach us about leadership, but I think it can teach us how to fight climate change. It's one thing to read the accounts of explorers' death-defying pilgrimages or study them in universities, but it's quite another to learn from their experiences yourself. I'd already relived the journey of one of the seemingly impossible Antarctic odyssey, that of Douglas Mawson, who was the lone survivor of a 1911 expedition to the South Pole, where he was accused of cannibalizing his fellow explorers. So what was one more? The Shackleton story. I retraced the 1914 mission of Sir Ernest Shackleton, who went down to the Antarctic with the goal to cross it from one side to the other. He left on the eve of World War I in his ship, the Endurance, for about a 2,700-kilometer, 1,680-mile journey across the continent. As you're probably more aware, everything went wrong. The ship got stuck in pack ice, which closed in around its hull. Even though it was a very strong vessel, in the end, the ice crushed the hull, and the only thing holding the ship together was the ice tightly packed in around it. The men were stuck on this vessel for 10 months, surviving off penguin meat and seal blubber. Then for another 5 months, they lived a very precarious existence on the sea in camps, living under 3 upturned lifeboats from the main expedition ship. They were all going to die. Everyone knew it, Shackleton knew it, they knew it, but somehow his leadership got them through it. The key takeaway for me is the fact that Shackleton has had what we now call emotional intelligence. He knew that teams are made up of individuals, and every individual is different. If you want to have a group of people pull as one to achieve a singular goal, in their case survival, then you need to tell each person a slightly different version of the story. The same can be said for climate change. When we approach the issue, we often have a one-size-fits-all, fear and guilt-based messaging system. But we have to be careful about the message we use and get more creative about that message to get the issue across. In the UN is very different from the US in terms of what influences them, compared to a country like India with 300 million people in rural poverty, or Vanuatu, which is under threat of being submerged in the same way Shackleton's ship was. That's not where the similarities stop. In Shackleton's case, the ship goes down. They spend 10 months on the ship, 5 months on the pack ice. Then the men get into 3 lifeboats and paddle for their lives. The nearest place of land they can find is a jagged rock called Elephant Island. They fall ashore as they celebrate, as far as they're concerned, they've saved themselves. But Shackleton knows that they're all going to die there. Nobody's going to be able to find them there. The only hope for them is to get in the most seaworthy boat, and attempt the journey across the Southern Ocean to the nearest habitable place, a little dot in the Southern Ocean, some 1,500 kilometers from Elephant Island, South Georgia. Against all odds, 2 storms, 1 massive hurricane, and navigating using a sextant on a 23-foot-long pitching boat with no keel in the roughest ocean in the world, often in complete darkness, seeing the sun twice a day to navigate by, they managed to find the little dot in the ocean. If they'd missed it, the next land was 4,500 kilometers further in Namibia, and obviously they would be dead. To further their troubles, their terrible luck, they arrived on the southern side of the island. The trouble was the whaling stations that were their salvation were on the north side of the island, and in between them was a mountain that had never been climbed. They had no maps, no climbing gear, and no tents. 3 of the men had been incapacitated due to the trials and tribulations of the journey, leaving only Shackleton and 2 others to complete the journey. So what did they do? They pushed nails through the soles of their boots for grip and did the first crossing of the mountains of the South Georgia in a time that modern mountaineers have been unable to replicate even today. They reached the station, raised the alarm, and saved the 22 men they left behind on Elephant Island. It was a truly remarkable journey. Okay, now this is where you might find out what a complete nut this guy is. Replicating Shackleton's journey, so I decided to give it a go myself. There's a picture of the boat in the electronic article. This is the boat, the Alexandra Shackleton, named after the granddaughter of Sir Ernest Shackleton, who asked me to replicate her grandfather's mission. The idea was simple. Suffer as they did, wear old clothing, eat lard, operate a boat with no keel in the roughest ocean in the world, and no GPS and no emergency supplies of Mars bars. Nothing. Life in the boat, it's not for everyone. It's cold, unpleasant, dangerous journey across the Southern Ocean, and no modern equipment. Wearing cotton smocks designed for a journey across the windiest continent on the world, not the sea. This ocean is only just about 1 degree centigrade, 34 degrees Fahrenheit, and if you fall in, your survival time is about 10 minutes. Not because you go into cardiac arrest, because after 10 minutes, your legs lock up and you can't tread water and you drown. Most of the time at the helm of the boat is spent in knee-deep or even thigh-deep 1 degree seawater, and you lose feeling in your toes and the leather boots after 7 or 8 minutes. You've got to endure an hour in rough seas, often at night where you don't see the storms coming. After your hour at the hole, you go down, you bang on the hatch and go into the space the size of a king-size double bed sitting on top of rocks. It's cold. Dangerous environment where your crewmates are being sick on you. You're sleeping in a steady decomposing reindeer skin sleeping bag, and there's 1/3 of an inch of wooden plank separating you from 1 degree Southern Ocean. It ain't for everyone. No kidding, right? How do you get through it? This is I think where some of the important things are for us. You break down the enormity of the mission down into manageable pieces and power, though. And if that's not a metaphor for how we approach a massive issue like climate change, I don't know what is. We had big storms on the Southern Ocean. We had a plan, and that plan changed almost immediately, as it always does in expeditions or in life. As the saying goes, all military strategy survives until contact with the enemy. Instead of sticking to the original plan to get to the Southern Georgia, we had to constantly change it according to what the weather put out. It reminds me how President Obama, in his second term in the Oval Office, had no majority in the House. He wanted to get climate change legislation through. So how could he do it? He had to be creative. He refurbished pre-existing air quality legislation in states he could control. It was clever. We got there eventually. It was a torturous journey. When we arrived on South Georgia and had evidently survived, only just 3 of my people were completely incapacitated due to the trials and tribulations of that journey. That left 3 people just like Shackleton had. A quick historical note, I think this is important also. A quick historical note on the men that made it to South Georgia. As the story goes, when they were on Elephant Island, Shackleton got the 5 best men, put them in a boat, and off they went to South Georgia. The rest, as they say, is history. But if you look more closely, that's not what happened. He took the 3 best people and the 2 biggest troublemakers in the boat. He didn't want to leave them behind to erode away the morale of the 22 he left behind, living very precarious existence on the island. When it comes to climate change, sometimes you need to keep the people who represent the problem in close engagement. Instead of refusing to work with stakeholders you disagree with, the oil companies, the commercial polluters, the opposing political parties, you bring them into your inner circle. At least you can nullify the negative impact they have and try to get them to engage and help you positively. So off I went with the remaining 2 of my men. Enter the weather. We were unlucky. Antarctica can throw 85-knot winds at you, which blew our tents away and destroyed everything. Everybody's looking at you as a leader and saying, what do we do next? It can be very intimidating. It can be very overwhelming. I sometimes think there's a parallel between this situation and what day-to-day people are faced with dealing with an issue like climate change. Almost done. In that situation, either getting cold, tired people to climb a mountain or doing something about global warming, a good adage is to do something. I found myself saying, we just need to do something. Otherwise, the wheels of this expedition were going to fail, and all would be lost. And that's what we did. We headed into the mountains and completed the journey. The good news is, we can do something about climate change too. In addition to how you vote, you can reduce your personal footprint, you can put solar panels on your roof, and you can take public transport or cycle. Explorers have shared characteristics: vision, passion, the ability to instill confidence in others, and the resilience to see it through. We need to impart that kind of approach on others. Individuals need to do something. Collectively, we all make a contribution. I'll leave the final word from Anita Roddick, who was the founder of The Body Shop. If you think being small can't make a difference, try going to sleep with a mosquito in the room. So, what are some of the things that we take away and apply to what we're doing that you heard in that story? I think there's a lot, but just give me a few examples. Yeah?
Well, they're pulling in these troublemakers, and so that you can continue to affect them and engage them positively, and you don't let the rest of the group be at their mercy.
Yeah, I found that very interesting also.
Can people hear people, or do we want to use the mic?
Mike, okay, good. Yep, hold on, wait for the mic, okay?
Well, I thought it was interesting, you're working with everyone that you need to work with, not just the people you want to work with. So you're recognizing the existing sort of power structure, existing stakeholders.
Yep, cool.
Like it or not.
Great. 1 or 2 more? What else did we take away? Yep.
I would say climbing the mountain with nails in your shoes is a good example of doing something that seems improbable or unlikely, but just going for it.
Yeah, nice.
The takeaway for me was the piece about the emotional intelligence and approaching people at the level or where they are,
Yeah.
instead of where I would want them to be.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
was
That's something we need to be working on all the time, right? Our coworkers, our family, your spouse. The hand right here. These 2 of them will. Yeah. Okay. Guess you're last then, Tom.
Okay. I'd say when things look bad and your chances aren't very good, you can either roll up and die, or you can roll up your sleeves and make a plan and execute as well as you can. Take
Yeah.
the best option.
Yeah. Nice. Thank you. Cool. All right. Last 2. Sorry. No good at saying last one.
My takeaway was one that wasn't said directly, but I kept expecting it to be, that they succeeded because they were trying to rescue other people. And I don't think they would have done it if it had just been for themselves.
Nice.
And I know most of us wouldn't work this hard on climate change if it was just for ourselves.
Nice. Yeah, I love that. Okay, Bruce, you are officially the last then.
One step at a time.
Yep, cool. Okay, good. So then thank you all. Referring back to, again, the leader survey every year that says we want to learn best practices from each other, we want to touch on a few of our levers for creating political will and find out what you're doing that works. So we'll do that by table. We'll hear a couple of best practices by table. You don't have to repeat it if somebody says it. Is there somebody that can take good notes? Because I'd like to get this back to everybody who's here. Okay, excellent, thank you. And so let's start, given we have both liaisons and group leaders here, just lobbying. What are the things that you are doing that's working to move your member of the House, Senate, both along? What are the things that you're doing that you're happy about, that you want to make sure other people are aware of? So I'm going to give you 4 minutes on this with the table, and then we'll ask one person from each table to share 1 or 2 things that your group is doing. Go ahead. What we're looking for is what are 1 or 2 things that you're doing that you feel good about with your group. So we'll start with this table.
Okay, I guess. So we have a few people from Colorado and 1 person from Arizona. On the Colorado side, since we are blessed with the liaison to Gardner at our table, we talked about Senator Cory Gardner, Republican. We've had kind of a long-standing effort led by Doug with Gardner, and then a recent infusion of younger people, including myself and Lindsay and Kelsey in the back, who have partnered with the college Republicans at the university who endorsed the EICDA to kind of put additional pressure on Gardner. So I think having young people, and particularly young Republicans, has been the closest thing to a game changer we have for Gardner. Now, he's not supportive of the bill, but there are individuals in his office who have said positive things in private to us about it. And so that is when you start building people within the inner circles, that's good. And in Arizona, they've been meeting with every candidate, coffee with candidates for state offices, and kind of outreaching through them that way, also with students involved.
Great, okay, we'll go this way. We'll go straight back and then come around and come forward.
I talked too long, so we only had 2 things come up. Pretty good. My thing is, I'm a liaison to Tipton's office, conservative, Republican. I never go into their office and ask them a question that they're going to say no to. I do not ask them to support the legislation. I do not ask them to become part of the Climate Solutions Caucus. What I do, because they know who I am. If they could say yes to those things, they tell me walking in the door. Okay? So what I stress is, what questions do you have about the legislation? What constituent groups can we go to talk to lobby? As a result, within their office, as you mentioned in the other table, we have people in their office who are advocates for our policy, and we know that. And at this point, I'm very welcome in all their offices, and they've also made suggestions about groups that we can speak to that will help lobby. The other one, which I love and I have to chase up, is the list of economists who endorse carbon fee and dividend. Looking up that list, finding the ones that are local, reaching out, contacting them to help lobby with congressional offices.
Great. Fantastic, thank you. Next table.
Okay, so I talked too long also, but, so we only got through 2. But Chris here is a liaison for Michael Bennett, and he really talked about how appreciative he is of the CCL line and the approach, and having really good relationships with the Bennett's office that we have now. And what I talked about was my colleague, who's a co-liaison for Cory Gardner, gave a really terrific presentation to the Northern Colorado office on agricultural responses. And as many of you know, Cory Gardner's constituency consists of a lot of people in the agricultural business. So, you know, when we get to the tipping point, Cory will be able to, or at least we hope we help him, able to help his constituents respond.
Great, thank you. And back.
We have a highly progressive member of Congress, Lloyd Doggett, so our situation is different from many's, but one of the things that we always do is, how can we help you as you fight climate change? And surprisingly, one of the things that they want to know is what's going on the local level as opposed to the federal. And the staff people says they love to visit with us because they get so discouraged in Congress, and to hear that Austin is actually getting some significant things done is inspiring.
Cool, thank you. All right, start in the back over there and then work our way forward.
Hi, I'm from Detroit, Michigan, and my representative is Rashida Tlaib. She's very progressive, and we've been talking to her about the bill, and I think they're really considering it, being a co-sponsor. We've had some good conversations with them, and they've asked really thoughtful questions. I also have an invitation to talk to someone from Elizabeth Warren's campaign tomorrow. I'm sure I'll have a bill with them.
Cool, and then just keep the mic for 1 second, Clara. So Clara is our higher education outreach coordinator, and how many campuses do you have us on now?
We have 40.
Nice, good work. All right, right here.
Okay, I'll just mention a few things. First, Joanne from Vegas was talking about how she was having problems getting local meetings with representatives, so she was kind of looking at the other events that are happening that, the member of Congress is putting out on the schedule and trying to get volunteers there, so not necessarily in a super formal setting, but something where you can have maybe a more personal conversation that on a hike or something like that. Another thing that was mentioned in both the Denver and the Boulder chapters, we have started putting on the list at the end, to talk about what you want to be doing that month for CCL or climate. I find our meetings are usually super inspirational. We're really congratulatory. We bring people together and inspire people, but then people kind of leave and go their separate ways, and there's not always a way to get involved after you leave, or to keep that same inspiration. So building off of that in Boulder, the young people recently had a meeting. We all kind of gathered at someone's house, and then we wrote, we brainstormed activities. We had a bunch of different, it'd be really cool if we got this endorsement and stuff, and then we signed people up to do these different things on the spot. And I think that was really good. Those shorts came out of it, for example.
Nice, thank you. Okay.
All right, we talked about a couple of different things. Michael talked about leading with appreciations for our members of Congress, which opens the door to a lot of conversations that wouldn't happen otherwise. I talked about just building relationships and how even the offices who don't agree with us like to see us when we come there, and like to take our calls, and we like them. We like the staffers in those offices, and I'm convinced it's going to lead to good things. And Dave talked about bringing young people in and the incredible power that we've had in DC of members of Congress who are interested in talking to the college students that we brought and not interested in talking to us.
So sad, right? Okay, excellent. Again, we're capturing all these and we'll get them circulated out so that if you're taking your own notes, but we'll make sure you have it so you can have things that you want to steal. So a lot of you are probably aware that we just went over our 1,000th endorsement, and we have a much bigger staff in DC than we used to have, and we're getting a lot of feedback from offices how important those endorsements are. So that's the next one I want to go on. And again, what are we doing that's working here? This region has been amazing at getting the ski area into association, protect our winters. I want this not just for here, but also so we can get what you're doing in this endorsement area out to the rest of the country. So you got 4 minutes again. What are you doing to get endorsements in your community? Go ahead. Okay, we're going to go the opposite direction we just went. So we'll start here. And what we're looking for from each group quickly is just one thing you're doing to get endorsements or something you're doing to use them. So how are you then actually applying them, having them be as powerful as possible? Yep.
So I think, I'm sorry, Jim was talking about his work speaking to the Chamber of Commerce. He mentioned that Boulder County and a lot of other local, generally liberal Democrat groups have endorsed, but he's working on the business end. And actually the Chamber asked him to go to some large employers as well before the Chamber will sort of move more boldly. So I think that's really important to sort of start in one spot, listen, learn, and then go from there.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe you move back to where you started.
Yep.
As opposed to assuming that you're going to stay on one target the whole time. I was telling our group about how we're drafting off of a neighboring group in California in Tahoe and Truckee, because Matt Tucker and Bill Barron are co-leads of the Outdoor Industry Action Team. Tahoe is very friendly. Reno needs to kind of get its rear in gear, but we can get some help from that. So if you're near a group that's having a lot of success, reach out and ask them for help.
Nice. Cool. This table?
I tried to pass life on this. Okay, so a few things we talked about were like how important it is to have a buddy oftentimes with endorsements. So if you are the only person emailing someone and they don't get back to you, you have someone else to kind of push you a little bit about reaching out to them again. There was a lot of talk about how we could get breweries involved. That seems to be kind of a hot topic right now. We were talking about how young people obviously can be super important in people who are in positions of power are usually very, in my experience at least, impressed when there's a young person who kind of takes the initiative and he just immediately sends an email out to someone pretty high in power.
Thank you. Back table?
Okay, so considering that we're both into higher education outreach, some of the endorsement efforts that we've been working on are getting the endorsements of presidents of universities, and particularly at CU Boulder, we're working towards the president's endorsement and the board of regents. It's universities are huge, they represent so many students, the greater community, so many employees. It's great to show that the leaders of those communities support the policy. There are 53 universities who have, I think, endorsed the carbon fee and dividend framework, which is great. Another thing that I personally do is I work on faith community outreach, so I try to get the leaders of particularly churches right now, hoping to expand that to be more interfaith, to not only endorse the policy, but also to lobby on behalf of the policy, so to have a prominent community leader in lobby meetings. That's my goal. So students are really passionate and effective at gaining college president endorsements. So we've had success with 53 college presidents. So if you have young people who want to do this type of thing with CCL, I have tons of resources, templates, presentations, everything they need to get their college president endorsement.
Great. Yep.
Our member of Congress is a Democrat, and one of the things that we have done is we've approved, there are 20 Democratic clubs in Austin. We've approached them to do a presentation and asked for an endorsement because they like to endorse candidates and issues, and we have had excellent reception from those who saw us, so we're able to do both education and get an endorsement, which we only circulate to the Democratic members of Congress from Texas, not the Republicans.
Thank you.
We have the expert on endorsements here, but he won't talk. So we talked a little bit about the difficulty of getting endorsements, the difficulty of being persistent, getting a few no's and going, oh, they don't want to endorse us and giving that alone. So the team approach is probably a very good one to use, and I like the idea of getting more people involved. And just talked about trying to get success and just being persistent, particularly now that we have an act. Before we had an act, I had some county commissioners say, don't want to endorse something when I don't know exactly what it's going to be. And so now we have more of an opportunity to just get out there and do it.
Thank you.
I'll talk. The other thing is that if they don't want to endorse our bill, they can issue a statement of support of some kind, either publicly or privately to their member of Congress, that they love all the revenue-neutral carbon fee and dividend bills that are pending in Congress.
Nice. Thank you, Bruce.
So we just held a mayor's conference this past Tuesday, and the Denver Press Club, we had 4 mayors. Our district covers a lot of the western suburbs. So this served to help us be better known within the city level of the area that we cover. And so now we're just trying to figure out how do we take advantage of this event. Was this a good event? And the question and answer was very engaging. The rapport among the mayors was excellent. And now we're trying to frame letters of thank you that will then give us access to the city councils of those towns.
Thank you.
So I would say in the frame of Bruce that we're really looking for influencers more than endorsers for Cory Gardner. In fact, I'm very Cory Gardner centric at this point. So I think one thing that Jim didn't mention was that after his presentation to the Chamber of Commerce in Boulder, there was a Republican, a prominent Republican, who stepped forward and actually joined the CCL Boulder group, who is also a personal, knows Cory Gardner personally. So he is definitely an influencer that we will try and use. The other things that are happening, we have in Colorado a conservative strategy group, which is led by Ian Harrison, who you probably know. And so we're trying to develop strategies to get, and I'll call them influencers for our conservative members of Congress. I guess one of the important influencers in my mind, in fact, is the Farm Bureau. And with the help of Ellie Sparks, I think we're going to go after the Farm Bureau in Colorado.
Nice.
And you know, maybe Dan wants to address what's going on with the College Republic.
Oh, sure. So we also spoke a bit about student outreach, and a lot of credit here goes to particularly Kelsey in the back and Lindsay for various of these efforts. But through our efforts with the CU Republicans, after this conference, one of the conservative speakers at it is giving a talk to a much larger, potentially, group of Republicans within Colorado. Kelsey and I met with the president of Turning Point USA locally recently, and Lindsay has been spearheading an effort to get a physicist letter of endorsement to mirror the economist one. We've reached out to Steve Chu, who is Obama's energy secretary, with who won a Nobel Prize in physics, and a lot of us in the Boulder chapter are physicists, and so we have a lot of connections in that field. And this is a very nascent project. We don't know if it will succeed, but we figure kind of a group of overall well-esteemed academics in a technical field would be able to make the argument that just like scientists ask regular people to believe them on the science, on the evidence, we should also believe the economists who say, the people who study the scarcity of resources on how we should solve the problem.
Nice.
We had somebody say something about getting more youth involved, and I just wanted to say, 5 years ago when I joined CCL, the Boulder group was mostly older adults, a lot of us retired. The major change we've seen in the last 2 years is a major influx of CU students, and a good proportion of the active members now are CU students, and that's one reason we have 8 co-leaders, 3 of them are from CU, and that intergenerational shift has been kind of amazing in terms of the energy it's brought. They bring energy, passion, and lots of new actions that we wouldn't have done. Podcasts, Instagrams, it's just been amazing. So if you have a college in your area, you might try to think about outreach to them and try to bring in students and get them to bring in Dan has done a wonderful job of bringing in additional.
Yeah, which gets us to the last thing, and we're not going to have as much time as I want, but then I think you just spoke to the thing I said at the start, which is we want to make sure we find ways of including young people, conservatives, people of color. So what do you do? So one of the things that your chapter did is you broadened the amount of stuff you did. That's a really great idea. One of the group leaders last week said she opens every single chapter meeting by saying, I know there's Republicans and Democrats here. That's to send a signal to people saying, we're not doing a partisan talk. She doesn't know if there's always Republicans and Democrats, but she starts every meeting just as a way of trying to make it inclusive, particularly for people who are Republican to be there. So what are the other things that you can do? And we've just got a couple of minutes, so we're just going to be able to hear a couple of things either you are doing or you can do to make conservatives, younger people, people of color feel welcome in your chapter. Excellent suggestion. Yeah, actually, Clara has developed a pretty remarkable diversity training for everybody, and we've been doing a ton of work with the staff on it, and we've been expanding it to some of the regional conferences now also. Cool. Yep.
One thing, you know, Lillian Whitting, who's U of A Students for Sustainability CCL member, is doing a policy workshop for the Students for Sustainability in 2 weeks. And she's going to be aligning, you know, what makes good public policy with CCL, or our carbon fee and dividend. And all of the students who come to take the workshop, we're going to take with us, we'll schedule with lobby meetings.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, how many of you have noticed the dynamic changes when you bring young people to the lobby meetings? How many people have you noticed that? I mean, I don't know exactly how to explain it. I know it just changes. It's worth it every time. They seem to be paying closer attention. You know, some people say, well, they're future voters. That might be it. I'm not sure. It's just observable that it does change. So that's a good thing. Sorry, we're out of time. Sorry, my bad. But let me just say, we know as an organization that our job is to try and make your job easy. That's really, this is where everything happens. The majority of it happens is driven by group leaders and liaisons. So if we're ever not doing that, let us know. If there's ways we can do it better, please let us know. We know this is the engine of this organization. And so any way we can help any of you, please make sure you do let us know, okay? All right, thanks everybody.